There are mornings where you wake up and the first thing you notice is not thoughts, but weight. Not sadness with a story, not anxiety with a reason, just weight on your chest, behind your eyes, in your limbs, like the body is being asked to do something it doesn't consent to. Breathing is harder than it should be. Not because you're dying, but because you're alive, and the aliveness is loud. You sit up and the room is the same room, but you are not the same man inside of it. Waking up is hard. Rest is hard. Even doing nothing is hard. At first, you try to do what you've always done. You put on the mask. You perform as normal. You answer messages the way a normal man answers his messages. You try to be pleasant. You try to be easy. You try to keep the peace. But masking has a shelf life, and we all know this. And when it runs out, it doesn't run out politely. It snaps, it collapses, it shows up in small humiliations no one sees. You stand at the sink and your hands shake slightly. Not enough to be obvious, but enough that you notice. You type a message, delete it, type it again, delete it again. You want to reach out, and you also don't want to be seen like this. You can feel the costume slipping the moment you put it on, like wearing a thin cloth in a fire. And the strange part is, you're not even trying to be dramatic. You simply cannot pretend without paying for it in your nervous system. So you stop. Not as a decision, as a collapse of capacity. Panic attacks are still there. Some are sharp, like lightning, heart racing, hands tingling, sweat beading, the mind searching for an exit. Some are slow like weather, an atmospheric pressure that follows you throughout the day. Most men misread this and think it means they are falling. Like the panic, returning is proof they're broken. Like the isolation is a verdict. Like all progress was imaginary. But there is another possibility that doesn't romanticize it and doesn't insult it. Sometimes the body brings you back to the edge because the edge is the only place you cannot lie. This isn't a motivational sentence. It's a brutal fact. When the nervous system is lit up like this, it becomes impossible to polish your life. You cannot aestheticize it. You can't positive think your way out. It's raw, and raw forces truth. And socially, well, it's more real than ever. Not self-pity, not a story, real isolation. People have moved on. Some don't know how to be with this. Some are just completely afraid of it. Some are tired, some are busy, and some simply knew you as a role. Funny, helpful, stable, available. And when the role dissolves, the relationship thins and evaporates. You can feel it. fewer calls, fewer invitations, less warmth in the room. Not because you're hated, because you are no longer easy to place. This is one of the quiet cruelties of initiation. When your inner world changes, your outer world doesn't instantly recognize to care for it. Sometimes it reorganizes to actually avoid it. There is a deep infantile urge to cry out, to blame others, to name betrayals, to stop and point at the ways where you failed. And some of that may be true, but you also know quietly and painfully this is yours. Not in the sense that you caused it, in the sense that you are the one who must walk through it and nobody else. No one can metabolize this for you. No one can breathe it for you. No one can step into the pit and lift you out without the pit taking something from both of you. So you don't blame. Not because you're noble, but because you're out of options. You're learning the lonely discipline of owning this rite of passage, your rite of passage. Here's what happens if you treat this season like one of your personal defects. You naturally start hunting for a cure that doesn't exist. Therapy sessions become another performance. Saying the right things, collecting insights, and we all know, leaving unchanged. The gym becomes another punishment. The sauna becomes a masterful avoidance ritual. Cold water becomes a bargaining chip. You gather tools like charms, hoping one of them will finally shut the door on your inner world. And you might get temporary relief, enough to function, enough to live out this day, but not enough to return. So years pass, you're respected, you're listened to, you're seen as doing the work, and your life gets smaller. Your relationships thin out. Your voice gets quieter. Your standards soften so you can survive the day. That is the real danger of this phase. Not pain, shrinkage, retreat. And then our good friend anger comes. Not polite anger, transcendental anger and rage. Anger at God, not as an idea, but as the lover who left you waiting broken-hearted, like Radha turning her face away from Krishna, sulking, furious, and yet still faithful. A mood that is so beyond understanding, a grief so intimate it becomes rage. You think, if you're real, why this? You think, if you're guiding me, why does it feel like utter abandonment? And then you hate yourself for questioning. And then you hate yourself even more for hating yourself. But this is not sin. This is relationship. A man who has never argued with God has never been close enough to him to risk it. Devotion that can't tell the truth becomes theatre. And you are not here for theatre anymore. Theatre no longer matters when you're deep down in the belly of the whale, when you're walking through the labyrinths. Across cultures, across continents, men have always known about this place. The pit, the underworld, the descent. not as a metaphor to sound deep, as a lived, embodied terrain. The old stories don't call it mental health. They call it the threshold. It's the point where the old self cannot carry you anymore. Where the strategies that used to work stop working. Where you are forced to meet the real, raw material underneath your fabricated identity. This is initiation, not the romantic kind, the kind that strips you to the bone and asks, well, what remains when nothing works? And in the old worlds, men were taken away from the village and left with the elements, with silence, with fear, not to punish them, but to reveal them. Here you do what you can. You go to the gym. You sit in the heat of the sauna. You cold plunge. You walk. You breathe. And these things matter. They keep the edges from turning into a cliff. But there is only so much a remedy can do when the work is existential. No practice can replace the passage. No routine can shortcut the descent. If you're honest, you're not looking for a trick. You're looking for a way to endure without betraying the truth of where you are. And this is where the body becomes the altar. Not your opinions, not your theories, the body, the sacred temple. This is where the edgewalker lives and has lived for eternity, between worlds, not fully in the normal tribe, not fully gone. A man in initiation often looks like a man in trouble because the village no longer has a clean place for him. That doesn't mean you are special. It means you are in a human pattern that has always existed. And yes, it can feel utterly humiliating. Social damage, isolation, no clean tribe, no clear witness. Just you and the pressure. But ancient systems understood something modern life forgets. Some transformations require solitude because the new identity needs silence to knit itself together. And of course, you compare yourself to peers, to old versions of yourself, to the ideals you once believed you should have embodied by now. And the gap feels humiliating, catastrophic, like watching a ship sail away while you're still in the sand with your hands tied. This phase makes comparison feel like acid, but comparison assumes the same path. And you are not on the same path right now. Some men are building careers. Some men are building families. And some men are in the underworld learning how to survive themselves and doing their soul work. That isn't poetry. That is reality. If you haven't been there, this is what it feels like. Like you are swimming between two islands in a current so strong you cannot see the shore. The old island behind you is burning. There's no life there. The new island ahead of you is not promised. And every stroke costs. Some days you feel a little closer. Some days you feel pulled back. And you want to scream at the unfairness of it all. You want to demand a sign. You want to demand relief. And then you remember, this is the contract. Not a contract you can quote. A contract written in the language of your life, of your soul. You came here to know what it is to be stripped, to be emptied, to be reduced to what cannot be performed. Here is the instruction for those currently living this sacred threshold. And it's not glamorous, and it's not logical. Stop trying to swim like you are already on land. When the current is so strong, you don't waste oxygen on panic. You reduce movement. You orient yourself. You pick one marker, not the whole future, the whole ocean. One direction, one breath, one stroke. So the practice is microscopic. You put your feet on the proverbial floor and feel the weight. Exhale longer than you inhale. Make one clean decision today that does not betray you. Just one. That one decision is the sacred thread. And a sacred thread is how you move through labyrinths. Not by dominating the maze, but by refusing to let go of what is true. People talk a lot about the gift in suffering. Be careful with that language. It can very easily become spiritual bypass. The gold here is not a motivational poster. The gold is the end of pretending. The gold is the moment you stop negotiating with reality. The gold is a nervous system that learns through fire that it can survive honestly. This is the place where the false self dies without applause. This is where the soul becomes heavy with truth. If you are here, breathing hard, waking up hard, restless, isolated, hear this. You are not behind, you are in it. Ask for faith, fidelity, one breath without betrayal, 1 hour without performance. One decision that does not sell your center for relief. Yes, you're lost, but you're exactly where you need to be. Hold the line. Remember the sacred thread and honor this journey.